What is your darkest secret you're dying to tell? I'm not afraid of him. He gets verbally aggressive with me sometimes, and I handle it fine. But when I hear him berating my mom, I freeze up, paralyzed by a complex mix of emotions I can't even begin to untangle. In public, he's a completely different person. He's charming, well-liked, active in community organizations like the PTA and marching band parents. He's a regular churchgoer, sitting beside the rest of my family every Sunday, playing the role of the devoted husband and father. There are only a few people besides my mom and me who've seen his true nature, and even they haven't witnessed the full extent of his darkness. My mom and I strongly suspect he may have some form of bipolar disorder, but any mention of it sends him into another rage. There's no reasoning with him, and no one else seems to believe it anyway. His public persona is too carefully crafted, too convincing. This is long-winded and probably unnecessary, but I've been trying to find a way to express these feelings for years. I absolutely love my mom, and after years of watching her endure my father's abuse, my hatred for him has grown into something that consumes me. I haven't enjoyed a single moment in his presence for years. I know my reasons for hating him might not seem as strong as some others, but it doesn't change how I feel. Every time I see him raise his voice at my mother, every time I watch her shrink under his verbal assault, my hatred grows stronger, deeper, more complete. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal, and sometimes I wonder, if this is what the rest of life holds, do I even want to continue this journey? Story 1. In February 2014, my world shattered when my father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. As his primary caregiver, I became intimately acquainted with both life and death. Every day brought new challenges, from managing hospital visits to administering medications with trembling hands. I memorized every line on his face, knowing each moment could be our last. For his final 36 hours, I maintained a heartbreaking vigil at his bedside. Like a well-rehearsed dance, I administered his medications every hour. Morphine for pain, anti-saliva medicine to prevent choking, relaxants for his transition. His last wish was to see us all gathered on Easter Sunday. Instead, he slipped away in my arms on April 21st, taking a piece of my soul with him. My family sees me as the strong one, the pillar of support. They don't see how every melancholic melody reduces me to tears, or how my nights are haunted by dreams of him. I've sought help through therapy and support groups, but nothing fills the void. I force smiles over drinks with friends, maintaining a carefully constructed facade while the colors of life fade to gray. The most painful truth? Sometimes when I'm alone, drowning in memories, I find myself envying him. At least he's found peace, while I'm left here, forever changed by those 36 hours that taught me both the beauty and cruelty of love. Story 2. I never believed in demons until I became trapped in a drug-induced nightmare after a motorcycle accident. As a 30-year-old man who prided himself on mental fortitude, I thought I was above such fears. I was wrong. The medications transformed my mind into a personalized hell. Colors morphed into impossible shades that carried emotional weight, blues that whispered despair, reds that screamed terror. A gentle voice, familiar yet malevolent, guided me through increasingly horrific scenarios like a twisted Virgil leading me through a modern inferno. The worst part, the false awakenings. Countless times I thought I'd escaped, only to realize I was still trapped in the labyrinth of my own mind. When I finally did wake, truly wake, I found myself whimpering in a hospital room, my body broken but my mind shattered by something far worse than physical pain. This isn't your typical dark secret, no crime, no moral transgression. But it represents something perhaps more terrifying, the fragility of our grip on reality, and the horrors that lurk within our own minds. Even now, years later, I sometimes wonder if I ever truly escaped that nightmare, or if this reality is just another layer of the dream. Story 3. In my family, emotions are treated like unwelcome guests, acknowledged briefly, then promptly shown the door. Growing up as a first-generation Serbian immigrant, I learned early that feelings were weakness, and throwing some dirt on it was the universal remedy for every wound, whether physical or emotional. The irony? This stoic upbringing created someone who feels too deeply, loves too intensely. Every relationship ends the same way. Partners retreat, overwhelmed by what they perceive as neediness. I'm caught between two worlds, raised in a family where emotions are suppressed, yet cursed with a heart that feels everything tenfold. My life appears perfect on the surface, loving family, stable existence. But beneath this veneer lies a soul starving for genuine connection. The phrases echo in my head like a mocking chorus. Man up, stay strong. Keep pushing forward. I'm exhausted from manning up, tired of being strong. In a culture where vulnerability equals weakness, my greatest sin is simply feeling too much. Story 4. It started innocently enough, synthetic marijuana to pass drug tests at my new job. But what began as a simple solution morphed into a 2-year dance with a demon that nearly consumed my soul. My marriage crumbled, my health deteriorated, and 2 arrests for reckless driving served as warning shots I chose to ignore. Rock bottom came in the form of a flipped car in a ditch, a brush with death that should have been my wake-up call. But even that wasn't enough. Then came 2 words that changed everything. I'm pregnant. In that moment, my future split into 2 crystal-clear paths. Continue my descent into darkness, or fight my way back to the light for my unborn child. The withdrawal was hell on earth. 6 days without food, my body rejecting everything but water. But with each wave of nausea, each tremor, I held on to the image of my future child. Now 16 months clean, I cradle my 6-month-old son, whose innocent eyes remind me daily why I chose to live. He doesn't know it, but this tiny soul saved me from the brink of destruction, restoring not just my sanity, but my entire world. Story 5. 5 words changed 2 lives forever. Please don't do this. That's all I wrote when I saw her desperate online advertisement. A young woman trying to sell her virginity to save her education. Instead of scrolling past, I chose to stop and reach out. Her story unfolded like a modern tragedy. A mother who lost her job, unpaid tuition fees threatening to end her college dreams. She wasn't just selling her virginity. She was sacrificing a part of herself to keep her future alive. Without hesitation, I offered to pay her tuition, not as a hero, but as a fellow human being preventing an irreversible choice. Last week, I received a photo of her in a graduation gown, her smile radiating pure joy. Now she's pursuing her dream internship, building the future she deserves. The first installment of her repayment arrived recently. Just $50, but it carried the weight of her integrity and determination. Some acts of kindness are more powerful when they grow quietly, like seeds beneath the soil, blooming into something beautiful and unexpected. Story 6. 3 years ago, I discovered how thin the line is between love and murder. When my ex-girlfriend started dating my friend, something inside me snapped. Her dismissive response to my confrontation, "We're not together anymore, you have no right to be angry," became the match that lit a dangerous fire. One night, I found myself standing outside her house, a knife cold in my hand, my mind consumed by thoughts of revenge. I wasn't just contemplating murder, I was embracing it. The weight of a potential life sentence seemed insignificant compared to what my twisted mind perceived as justice. By some miracle or divine intervention, she wasn't home that night. Fate saved not just her life, but my humanity. Years have passed, but the memory of that night still poisons my thoughts. The scariest part isn't that I almost became a killer. It's that somewhere inside me, that potential still exists. To anyone being stalked or harassed, never engage, never escalate. The smallest contact can feed the beast within them, causing a spiral that might end in tragedy. Sometimes the most dangerous monster is the one wearing your own face in the mirror. Story 7. My closet isn't built from hatred or discrimination. It's constructed from the fear of disrupting the perfect normalcy of my life. I'm gay, but that's probably the least interesting thing about me. Yet in our small community, where family gossip travels faster than light, it's the one thing that could rewrite my entire story. The irony cuts deep. I'm not afraid of rejection. What terrifies me is the transformation. How this simple truth would suddenly become the lens through which everyone views me. My mother would eventually accept it, her love proving stronger than her preconceptions. But my father, I already see the shadow of disappointment clouding his eyes, silently rewriting 18 years of memories. My friends' casual jokes and easy camaraderie would become awkward, each interaction weighted with unspoken questions. In the locker room, every movement would be scrutinized. I'd still be the same person who shared their victories and defeats, but one fact would erase years of shared history. Sometimes I wonder if authenticity is worth the price of rewriting every relationship I've ever had, of watching people mentally revise every memory through this new filter. Story 8. P.S. I'm rich. 5 words casually dropped into conversation changed everything I thought I knew about my wife. We were getting serious when she revealed her secret. She was an heiress, and we wouldn't need a prenup. Suddenly, I found myself living in 2 parallel worlds. One visible to all, carefully constructed to appear normal, and another hidden world of privilege that we rarely discuss even with each other. We maintain our careers and live modestly in a nice but unremarkable house. We've mastered the art of diplomatic vagueness when discussions of money arise. But there are subtle tells, a summer home here, an unexpected freedom there. The truth, we could retire today and live comfortably for several lifetimes. The irony? My wife often says, with a sadness no amount of money can ease, that she'd give every penny back for just one more day with her parents. I've learned that wealth, while solving many problems, creates its own unique forms of poverty. We're living a life of privilege that neither of us quite feels we deserve, maintaining a performance of normalcy while carrying the weight of a secret that both frees and imprisons us. Story 9. 22 years ago, I was a middle school student with access to my mother's .357 Magnum and a heart full of revenge. Relentless bullying had pushed me to the edge, and I spent nights planning how to make my tormentors pay. I knew exactly which bullies would be first, had mapped the most efficient route through school hallways, had even calculated the optimal timing during class changes. The turning point wasn't dramatic, just a simple fight in gym class. I didn't throw a punch. When my main tormentor approached, something shifted inside me. Instead of cowering, I grabbed him, threw him to the ground, and walked away. The look of shock on his face said more than violence ever could. His target wasn't helpless anymore. That moment taught me something crucial. Bullies target those they perceive as weaker. Challenge that perception, and their power crumbles. Looking back, I shudder at how close I came to making an irreversible choice. The gun that once felt like salvation now represents everything wrong about violence and power, an illusion of strength masking true weakness. Sometimes, all it takes is one moment of standing your ground to change everything. Story 10. Life has a cruel sense of irony. I was the bright one, the quick learner, the one everyone expected to soar. Then at 11, I received my first kidney transplant, a moment of triumph that turned bitter 5 years later when the transplanted kidney failed. My transcript tells a story of failure, but it doesn't tell the whole truth. The work I did manage to complete between treatments mostly earned A's. It wasn't lack of intelligence that held me back, but lack of opportunity to prove it. Now, watching life pass by through a window I can't open, I explore the world of programming and web development, a digital realm where physical limitations matter less. But here's the painful part: I procrastinate. I spend days playing meaningless games, watching shows I barely enjoy, all while knowing that if I'd started learning code a year ago, I could be earning money now, contributing something to the world instead of merely existing in it. The frustration builds daily. My mind remains sharp as ever, trapped in a body that won't cooperate. I'm caught in a paradox of potential and limitation, watching opportunities slip through my fingers like grains of sand, building a mountain of regret one missed chance at a time. Story 11. From the outside, my life looks enviably normal. I'm attractive, quick with a joke, surrounded by friends. But beneath this carefully maintained facade, I'm planning my exit. The 4th of July trip with my mom will be my last memory to leave behind. At least, that was the plan until I started writing this. My world is crumbling: defaulted student loans, credit score below 200, 5 classes short of graduating, though my family watched me walk, and a recent job loss that stripped away my health insurance. I've resorted to things I'm ashamed of to survive, carrying secrets that weigh heavier than the negative $500 in my bank account. But something strange happened as I wrote this confession. Between the lines of my despair, I started seeing possibilities I'd overlooked. Maybe it's not about ending the story, but about rewriting it completely. What if, instead of planning my death, I planned my rebirth? After all, when you've got nothing left to lose, you've got everything to gain. Perhaps rock bottom can be the foundation for something new. Story 12. 3 words. Just 3 simple words could have changed everything. My father's last conscious moment on earth was looking for me in his hospital room. The nurse's voice still echoes in my ears. "Gary, your daughter's here." His eyes lit up, searching until they found mine, managing a weak wave despite the tubes and wires. All I said was, "It's okay, Dad, just go back to sleep now." Such simple words, so catastrophically inadequate. I was the last person to speak to my father in this world, and I failed to tell him what he deserved to hear. Those 3 words, "I love you," hung unspoken in the air between us, a debt I can never repay. What makes it worse is that I can't even remember the last time I did say those words to him. Our relationship was complicated, marked by distance that I now realize wasn't entirely his fault. The memory of our last exchange has become a weight I carry, a constant reminder that sometimes the heaviest words are the ones we leave unsaid. Story 13. 2 years ago, a single injury shattered more than just my body. It broke my entire identity. From proud provider to dependent survivor, I watched my independence crumble like a house of cards. Now I spend my days cleaning up after 3 able-bodied people who treat me like a burden, while they criticize every small purchase I make for myself. The irony cuts deep. My family earns $135,000 annually, yet I had to beg for months just to get a haircut. When I finally found a doctor who could help my chronic pain, they refused to cover the $1,000 deductible, forcing me to borrow from a loan shark. They work in the medical field but don't believe in mental illness, telling me depression is something to get over. My fiancé landed a job he's overqualified for through his father's connections. Didn't even have to apply. The sting is sharp because I spent countless hours helping him with resumes and interviews for positions I'm equally qualified for, but can't take due to my condition. Now I dream of escape, of running away to start fresh. Maybe it's not my body that's truly broken, but the cage of dependency they've built around me. Story 14. For years ago, I found something I'd never had before, a true friend who saw past my walls. But I built our friendship on a half-truth that's grown into a mountain between us. I told her I was gay, when when in truth, I'm bisexual. It seemed simpler then, a way to avoid complications. How could I have known she'd become my best friend? That this small lie would grow into something that keeps me awake at night. The cruel irony? If I tell her now, I'd have to explain something even more complicated. That while I could be attracted to women, I'm not attracted to her at all. Not because of her appearance or personality. The chemistry simply isn't there. But how do you tell your best friend something like that without it sounding like rejection? Every time we share secrets or discuss relationships, the truth burns in my throat like unsaid words. I watch her trust me completely while keeping this part of myself hidden. Sometimes I wonder if protecting our friendship is worth the price of living this partial truth. If the very trust I'm trying to preserve is what I'm betraying most. Story 15. When my father died and my mother suffered a stroke, I became Atlas, shoulders bent beneath the weight of a world I never chose to carry. I manage her healthcare with mechanical precision, coordinate appointments, monitor medications, interpret her struggles with words that once flowed effortlessly. Our house, neglected for years, creaks with the same exhaustion I feel in my bones. My younger sister retreats to her room at the slightest request for help, while I juggle my mother's care with the complexities of our financial maze. The future I dreamed of, completing my degree, building a career, now seems as distant as a mirage. I fear I'll spend the rest of my mother's life as her caregiver, and once she's gone, I'll be left alone, a shadow of the person I might have been. The hardest part? Watching the woman who raised me struggle with tasks that once came naturally, seeing her frustration when I use what she calls my patronizing tone. We who were once so close, now separated by the gulf of her condition and my role as caregiver. This duty has consumed me like a slow-burning fire, and I'm terrified that when it finally ends, there will be nothing left of me but ashes. Story 16. At 35, I've never known romantic love. It's not just about never having a girlfriend. It's about existing behind an invisible wall that separates me from the rest of humanity. At work, I'm the oddity colleagues observe from a safe distance, their whispered conversations following me like shadows. Despite my apparent instability, living in weekly hotels, unable to commit to leases, I've managed to save over $300,000. Money offers little comfort in my solitary existence. Recently diagnosed with severe ADHD, I finally have a name for the chaos that has ruled my mind since childhood. Everything requiring conscious effort feels like pushing against an invisible current. The irony? If I were listening to someone else share these things, I'd probably feel baffled and frustrated. That's the same reaction I get when I hint at any of this to others. If this all sounds crazy, perhaps it is, but it's the reality I wake up to every day, the water I swim in, even if no one else can see it. Story 17. For 15 years, I've been my fiancé's second choice, the consolation prize after my best friend rejected him. Even during our first year together, while I was falling deeply in love, his heart reached for her. She told me about his continued attempts to pursue her, questioning why I stayed. Each time I tried to leave, his tears and emotional manipulation pulled me back into our toxic dance. The pattern repeated like a tragic play. His exes forwarding me his emails, his creation of fake profiles to write beautiful words to other women he never said to me. Each confrontation followed the same script. His tears, my forgiveness, the cycle beginning anew. We're supposed to get married this November, but here's my dark secret. I won't be there. The wedding dress will hang empty, the venue will remain silent, and I will finally break free from this prison of pretend love. 15 years of hoping he would eventually love me taught me one bitter lesson. Sometimes being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel lonely. Story 18. Some sins leave scars that never heal. When I was younger, I committed an unforgivable act. I molested my sister. Now, I watch helplessly as the poison of my actions continues to spread through her life, turning her into an exceptionally angry person, her relationships with family strained to breaking point. Years ago, I discovered her journals where she had written about the abuse. Those raw words haunt me still, though the journals themselves are long destroyed. While I maintain zero contact with her and don't even know her current whereabouts, the evidence of my crime is written in the wreckage of her life. The fear of exposure has paralyzed my entire adult life. I've accomplished almost nothing, terrified that any success might draw attention to myself, might give her reason to reveal this skeleton in my closet. While she's gone on to earn college degrees and build a life, I remain stagnant, my potential withering under the shadow of my guilt. Some wounds can never truly heal, and I'm reminded of that every time I think about the sister I hurt and the lives forever altered by my actions. Story 19. Stop. Take a deep breath. Now imagine this. Instead of ending your story, what if you rewrote it completely? If you're sitting there contemplating the ultimate escape, consider this. You've accidentally discovered true freedom. You've conquered the ultimate fear, the fear of death. And in doing so, you've liberated yourself from all lesser fears. Want to ride elephants through misty jungles? Do it. Dream of petting tigers? Make it happen. Terrified of skydiving? Perfect. Jump out of that plane. A minute ago, your chances of survival were 0. Everything else is an improvement from there. You wanted death, but instead, you've been given the gift of fearless life. Save up, leave this place behind, and live the life you've been too afraid to pursue. Apply for that dream job. What's the worst that could happen? Rejection. You've already stared into the void and lived. Remember, you're not just surviving anymore, you're choosing to thrive. Every heartbeat is a victory. Every breath a revolution against the darkness that tried to claim you. Make each moment count, make each day an adventure, and show depression that you're not just going to exist. You're going to live with such intensity that it will never dare to shadow your door again. Story 20. Here's a lighter secret that still makes me grin. A tale of backstage romance that would never make it to the playbill. 6 years ago, during a theater production, one of the actresses and I wrote our own passionate subplot behind the scenes. She had keys to the rehearsal space, and since we both lived with our parents, this became our private sanctuary in the hours before official rehearsals. The prop bed, dressed with a black comforter for the show, became an unwitting player in our secret performance. We certainly left our mark, quite literally, hidden beneath one of the decorative pillows. Fortune smiled upon us, as none of the actors ever had cause to disturb those pillows during the actual performances. I sometimes wonder if that comforter is still there, bearing silent witness to our passionate indiscretion, or if some unsuspecting stagehand eventually made a rather surprising discovery during post-season cleaning. The theater is a place of magic and transformation. We just added our own chapter to its long history of backstage romance. Story 21. My life feels like a house of cards in a windstorm, each gust threatening to bring everything crashing down. The threads of control are slipping through my fingers, and I don't know where to begin gathering them up again. I have a friend in another country who teeters perpetually on the edge of suicide, using me as his sole emotional anchor. He refuses professional help like a drowning man refusing a life jacket, preferring instead to cling to our friendship with suffocating intensity. If I'm absent for even a day, his mental state deteriorates rapidly. His possessiveness has reached the point where he becomes distressed when I interact with anyone else, yet I can't bring myself to cut him off. The weight of potentially pushing him over the edge is too heavy to bear. He's the closest thing to a brother I've ever had, and that bond has become both a lifeline and a chain. College looms on the horizon like an approaching storm, but I feel no motivation to prepare for it. I make empty promises to myself about starting exercise routines or implementing positive changes, but they remain just that, empty promises. I hate hypocrites with a passion, which makes this situation even more frustrating because I've become exactly what I despise, someone who talks about change but never acts on it. My home has become a prison of filth and shame. The house is in such a state of disgusting disarray that I can't invite friends over without feeling mortified. My room, which I hate, has paradoxically become my only sanctuary, though it feels more like a cell than a haven. I'm trapped in this space that I detest, yet it's the only place where I feel any semblance of comfort. Social anxiety cripples my every attempt at normal interaction. I'm completely unprepared for the real world, having never held a job because I live in a small rural town and my awkwardness sabotages every interview. My parents are either too busy or absent, leaving me to figure out basic life skills on my own. Everything from shaving to personal hygiene has been a process of trial and error. Driving fills me with paralyzing anxiety. I avoid highways like the plague because I don't know how to navigate them confidently. The thought of merging into fast-moving traffic makes my heart race and my palms sweat. As if all this weren't enough, unrequited love is eating away at my soul like acid. I fell for a girl about a year ago who's way out of my league. We were friends once, but now she barely acknowledges my existence, the distance between us growing wider with each passing day. Even if something miraculous happened between us, it would be doomed from the start. She's away at college, building a future, while I'm stuck here stagnating. Still, I can't exorcise her from my thoughts. She's become a constant presence in my mind, making every day an exercise in emotional exhaustion. My grip on reality feels increasingly tenuous. My overactive imagination conjures shadows in the corners of our house, whispers my name in empty rooms. These hallucinations have transformed my insomnia from mere sleeplessness into a nightly horror show. During the last 2 months of high school, I existed in a state of complete indifference to my own survival. While not actively suicidal, I took reckless risks, walking into busy intersections without looking, taking too many sleeping pills. Somehow I survived and even managed to graduate, but now I feel trapped in a different kind of limbo. Any change I contemplate seems to lead to either personal disaster or causing pain to others. The pressure keeps mounting as my parents pull me in different directions. I'm terrified of cutting off my suicidal friend and feeling responsible for his death, but I'm equally scared of remaining stuck and missing out on whatever good things life might offer. I've been living in this state of perpetual crisis for years now, and while I've developed a strange peace with it, there's always that gnawing sense of impending doom, waiting for the moment when everything finally implodes. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal, and sometimes I wonder, if this is what the rest of life holds, do I even want to continue this journey? Story 22. This isn't a throwaway account because it led me to one of my firmest beliefs, though the path to this understanding nearly led me down a much darker road. 22 years ago, I came within a heartbeat of becoming another tragic headline, the middle school student who snapped under the weight of relentless bullying. I had easy access to my mother's Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum revolver, a weapon whose cold weight became increasingly comforting as my torment grew. Thanks to my older cousin's lessons the previous year, I knew exactly how to handle it, how to load it, how to release the safety, how to make it speak its deadly language. For several nights, I sat in my darkened room, the metal growing warm in my hands as I planned my revenge. I knew exactly which bullies would be first, had mapped out the most efficient route through the school hallways, had even considered the optimal timing during class changes. The thought of their fear, of finally having power over those who had tormented me, became a twisted lullaby that helped me sleep at night. What saved me wasn't a dramatic intervention or a sudden moral epiphany. It was a simple fight during gym class. I didn't even throw a punch. When one of my main tormentors approached, something in me shifted. Instead of cowering or running, I simply grabbed him, threw him to the ground, and walked away. The look of shock on his face, the sudden realization that his target could fight back, said more than any words could have. The incident earned me in-school suspension, but something unexpected happened. Since my mom and his grandmother were acquainted, he faced serious consequences at home, the Christmas Story style of punishment. More importantly, the dynamic had shifted. I had shown I wasn't just a passive victim anymore. Throughout 7th and 8th grade, I took my share of punches from other bullies, but something fundamental had changed. When I stood my ground, they inevitably backed off. Each confrontation reinforced a simple truth that would become my firm belief. Bullies target those they perceive as weaker than themselves. Challenge that perception, and their power begins to crumble. Looking back now, I shudder at how close I came to making an irreversible choice. The gun that once felt like salvation now represents everything I've grown to understand about violence and power. It would have been an illusion of strength masking true weakness, a permanent solution to what proved to be a temporary problem. That's my firm belief now. True strength isn't found in weapons or violence, but in standing your ground, in refusing to let others define your worth. Sometimes, all it takes is one moment of resistance to change everything. I'm grateful every day that I discovered this truth before it was too late, before I became another statistic, another tragedy, another cautionary tale about bullying and revenge. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal, and sometimes I wonder, if this is what the rest of life holds, do I even want to continue this journey? Story 23. This thread might be old, but the weight in my chest grows heavier with each passing day. I was 14 when I met my first girlfriend, the one who taught me what love truly means, the one who still haunts my dreams 4 years later. We were together for 4 beautiful years before we broke up last March. People say we just grew apart, but it feels more like we were torn apart by forces beyond our control. The pain of losing her carved a void in my soul that nothing seems able to fill. She moved on quickly, finding comfort in the arms of a guy named Phil. Watching her build a new life without me felt like dying in slow motion. Each glimpse of their happiness together another twist of the knife in my heart. A month after our breakup, I met another girl. By some cosmic irony, she shares my ex's name and is 3 years older than me. The age gap between 19 and 22 feels both insignificant and insurmountable. But here's my darkest truth. I don't love her. I don't even really like her. She's just a bandage over a wound that refuses to heal. I can't stop thinking about my ex. She's become a constant presence in my mind, like a ghost that refuses to be exorcised. The memories of our time together play on endless loop in my thoughts, each replay more painful than the last. It's driving me to the brink of insanity, knowing that while I'm drowning in memories, she's moved on completely. I don't think she harbors any feelings for me anymore, and the knowledge that I'll never have her back feels like a physical pain in my chest. On the surface, my life looks perfect. I have a steady job, I'm doing well in college, I've made new friends, and there's always someone willing to hang out. Everyone thinks I've moved on, that I'm happy with my new girlfriend and my new life. But it's all a carefully constructed facade. I'm sad, I'm angry. Angry at myself for letting her go, for not paying attention when I had her, for taking our love for granted until it was too late. The memories of our time together are both my comfort and my torture. They're all I have left of her, but they're also a constant reminder of what I've lost. She doesn't care about me anymore, and I hate myself for still caring so much about her. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal, and sometimes I wonder, if this is what the rest of life holds, do I even want to continue this journey? Story 24. I want to end my life, but I lack the courage to follow through. The truth is, death has been my constant companion for as long as I can remember, whispering its seductive promises of peace in my darkest moments. Between the ages of 9 and 15, I made 4 attempts to leave this world. None were serious enough to succeed. I couldn't bear the thought of causing my family that kind of pain. But they count in my mind, each attempt a testament to the depth of my despair, even at such a young age. I've been in therapy since I was 11, diagnosed first with depression, later with bipolar disorder. The medications helped for a while, creating an illusion of recovery, but the desire to die never truly went away. It just lurked beneath the surface, waiting patiently for its moment to resurface. Last summer, everything unraveled. I stopped taking my medications, a decision that triggered a cascade of poor choices and new symptoms. The doctors have mentioned borderline personality disorder, though it's never been officially confirmed. What I know with certainty is that I'm exhausted, tired of fighting to feel happy, tired of struggling just to feel anything at all. I've never known what it's like to experience joy without suppressing sadness in the background. It's as if my emotions exist in layers, with darkness always waiting beneath any moment of light. I often fantasize about killing myself, not as a punishment, but as a reward after years of enduring this constant internal warfare. The strange thing is, I know I'll never actually do it. I can't bring myself to inflict that kind of pain on my parents, my sister, or the few loyal friends who've stuck by me through everything. So I continue this elaborate performance, smiling, acting like everything's fine, pretending to be happy for the sake of those who care about me. But inside, I'm nothing but a hollow shell, going through the motions of life while waiting for death to claim me naturally. I've become an expert at maintaining this facade, at playing the role of a functioning human being, but the truth is, I died inside long ago. Now I'm just waiting for my body to catch up with my soul. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal, and sometimes I wonder, if this is what the rest of life holds, do I even want to continue this journey? Story 25. I don't like my father. The words feel like a betrayal even as I write them, but they're true. I'm not even sure I could honestly say I love him. The emotional connection that should exist between parent and child seems to have been replaced by a void of indifference tinged with resentment. From my earliest memories, he treated every parental duty as an unwelcome burden. His sighs and eye rolls when my mom would take me to do things I enjoyed spoke volumes about his attitude toward fatherhood. He beat my dog when I was little, an act of cruelty that planted the first seeds of distrust in my young heart. Until I was about 11, I genuinely believed he hated me. His constant irritation at my existence was palpable, like a thick fog that filled every room we shared. After that, his apparent hatred transformed into something perhaps even more painful, a kind of irritated indifference, as if I were an unwelcome houseguest who had overstayed their welcome. He was consistently rude to my friends, ignoring them when they politely introduced themselves, making mean-spirited comments about them after they left. I couldn't honestly call him abusive. He never hit me or screamed at me, but his behavior made it clear that my presence in his life was an inconvenience he barely tolerated. Our relationship improved slightly after I graduated college, if you can call the absence of active dislike an improvement. He stopped acting like I was a drag on his life, but by then, the damage was done. The emotional distance between us had become an unbridgeable chasm. I get along with him now because that's what we do in my family. We don't argue or talk about things. We maintain a surface-level peace by never addressing the deeper issues that lurk beneath. But I know in my heart that I wouldn't suffer if I never had to see him again. I have very few memories of him where he's not being sullen around me. He wasn't fun, he didn't like to play, he made a point of not having friends, as if he were proud of his isolation. I just don't like the guy, and I probably should feel bad about that, but I don't. Years of emotional neglect have left me as indifferent to him as he always was to me. The saddest part is that this doesn't feel like a dramatic revelation or a weight being lifted. It's simply a truth I've lived with for so long that it's become as natural as breathing. I don't like my father, and that fact has shaped who I am in ways I'm probably not even aware of. I don't know if I'll ever truly heal, and sometimes I wonder, if this is what the rest of life holds, do I even want to continue this journey? Story 26. I know I'm extremely late to this thread, but I need to release this poison from my soul. I hate my father. Every day, I maintain a facade of affection, but I have to fight the urge to recoil when he hugs me or pats my back. As far as I know, he has no idea of the depth of my hatred, a hatred that burns hotter with each passing day. Since my earliest memories, he would get into arguments with my mom. While disagreements are somewhat normal in marriages, these fights were different. They always erupted over completely insignificant reasons, and invariably ended with him placing all blame on my mother. His talent for twisting reality to make himself the victim while painting her as the villain was remarkable in its consistency. The physical abuse started when I was younger. Sometimes it was so severe that my mom and I had to seek refuge in a battered women's shelter for weeks at a time. Recently, his violent tendencies resurfaced. He hit my mom again, proving that decades of marriage haven't changed him at all. The verbal abuse is constant, a steady stream of poison that corrodes my mother's self-worth. He swears at her, calls her degrading names, and once made particularly cruel comments about her weight, implying that all she does is sit around eating junk food and contributing nothing. The irony is bitter. She's one of the most active women I know, handling every household task imaginable while he does nothing but criticize. These fights almost always start because my father is having a bad day. If work stresses him out, he takes it out on my mom. If a co-worker annoys him, my mom bears the brunt of his anger. Nothing is ever his fault, yet she carries the weight of his every frustration. The worst part is that I do nothing to stop it. I can hear them arguing, but I can never summon the courage to tell him to stop projecting his issues onto her.